Welcome to Simon and Whiten, the podcast at the center of media, politics, and business. I'm Christian Whiten, and joining us, as always, is Mark Simon. Say hello, Mark.
Good evening, everybody.
Well, Mark, it's been a very interesting couple of days, and just news now breaking in the media that Chris Wallace, the host of Fox News Sunday, son of Mike Wallace, I put them both in the not nice guys category. Anyway, moving on, Chris Wallace from Fox and joining CNN. You know, I think of Wallace as, first of all, poorly placed on Fox.
Yeah,
and it's not
never
just that he leans kind of lefty and establishment and crazy arrogant. It's, he's ineffective, that he has this confrontational way. Maybe Tim Russert could have gotten away with it back, the late Tim Russert on his show. But I frankly always hated his show, too, because it doesn't get the facts out. It's just confrontation for the sake of confrontation. Fox was always fourth in the ratings against the other Sunday shows. Now, that's not entirely fair because those other three were native to incumbent networks. Fox was primarily Fox News. It was also picked up by the main Fox network. And I also put this in the context of these shows not mattering. I mean, it used to be when you had people like David Brinkley and Barbara Wallace in her prime running a Sunday show, that it would really set the agenda, the news and political agenda for that week. They'd have real people on talking about real people, real things. And it was, a real sort of node of power. I don't even watch these shows anymore. I haven't in years. But what do you make of Wallace going to CNN? What does that tell us about business?
Well, first of all, let me use the baseball owner analogy. They just moved somebody off the roster that cost a lot of money. And also, we don't have to hear Wallace basically selling his wife's cookbooks anymore. But the real issue is what you said, is essentially basically Sunday doesn't matter that much. It's not that important. I was watching some Sunday this morning myself, and I turned it off because I really wanted to see what was going on with the tornadoes out in the Midwest and find out what was happening. And they were having silly conversations about Joe Biden on NBC, and I just kept flipping through it. Look, Wallace is 74 years old, and I hope when I'm 74 years old, somebody comes along and grabs me. Wallace is going to the new CNN. Let's call it like it is. CNN has been bought by the Malone family. It's basically a Discovery's network, and they're going to take it over. They have already said, Malone is already out in public saying he wants more hard news. Chris Wallace, they must be having heart attacks across the woke side of CNN right now. Because Chris Wallace is one thing. He's a 74-year-old guy that worked at Fox. I think, he leans establishmentarian. He's an establishment guy, but he's not going to be down with the woke stuff. And so I think what we're going to see from him is a tone setting hire. That's how I see him. If I'm looking inside an organization to hire somebody that's going to send a message out and is not going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting, Chris Wallace is the guy. And if you're looking around right now, he's friendly with Malone, from what I understand. And essentially, I think what we're starting to see is CNN figure out they are in such bad place. Somebody was saying, the guy who was a Republican, who's replaced Chris Cuomo, he's doing really well. He's still got 26% of what Sean Hannity has, and basically about 35% of what Rachel Maddow has. He's getting killed. They've lost their deal in the airports. They're no longer in the airports. So what are they doing?
Thank God.
I know. So what are they doing?
They're now. That was a violation of the Geneva Convention.
That was awful. But now what do they have? What do they have now? They have basically, I think, it kind of made sense to me, because guess who the only ones who are constantly covering on a Saturday night? The tornadoes. I mean, I'll criticize Fox. I turned on Fox at 7 p.m. I'm watching the Greg Gutfeld rerun. 8 o'clock, I'm watching Jesse Waters. Fox is
and Fox has Fox Weather, but that's only in an app right now. It's not on cable or over the top, right? I get your point.
Fox. That's every one of those states that was hit. Fox won, and every one of those states, people had to go to CNN to watch what was going on, because we were watching Jesse Waters talk about silly stuff. That basically he and his producers think the base gets. Look, CNN is moving to the middle. There's no doubt about it. They're moving back to hard news. I think the other thing with CNN is Unfortunately, Discovery has a lot of business in China, so we're going to see some problems there for CNN down the road. Right now, in fairness, AT&T, it's hard for China to affect them. But Chris Wallace is moving on. I myself would probably think that we'll see someone like Maria Bartiromo. That's who I would see take that spot. In other words, just slide her show over from business. She's already got a show on Fox, but just expand it out. And she seems to be what people who watch Fox want to see. In other words, she's hard hitting, she's combative. She essentially, she's an ideologue in many ways, in the sense of like she believes she has the instincts. That's the other problem too with Chris Wallace. I always felt this with Wallace. He really wasn't a conservative, so he never asked the right questions.
And Maria's combativeness, just sorry to interrupt, just describing what she doesn't do. Her combativeness is actually sort of in search of the truth. That with Wallace, and again, sort of a poor man's version of when NBC used to do this, which is just in your face, petulant and obnoxious, and it puts people on their guard. It's sort of like, good prosecutors and good interrogators actually have a mild or a moderate manner. Start screaming at people and you put them on their guard. It just makes bad TV.
Look, people will say Trump killed the Sunday shows. Actually, it wasn't Trump, it was Obama. Because people just forget Obama basically was a president who didn't need the media. He really didn't need them. I mean, if he wanted to go out and have a conversation with the American people, he was quite frankly, the networks would lay at their feet, and he would bring out TOTUS. Remember that TOTUS, teleprompter of the United States?
I remember him, addressing the kindergarten class of about 12 people.
He did what he wanted to do.
They're like, wow, what's this?
And then what happened? What happened was this bizarre and strange thing that Trump showed up, and then everybody all of a sudden has to turn into the Elliot Ness of TV prosecutors, and they have to go after Trump. And, I remember one time I was watching, and I can't remember who it was, but it was a Trump official. He showed up. It was literally something about labor statistics, and they just went after him, and it was just ridiculous. He's just trying to make a point about labor statistics. Oh, it was Mitch Mulvaney. And it was just ridiculous. It had nothing to do, do you think this in the president? You think that in the president? And they're like, it's like some person you meet in the line at the supermarket, the crazy lady in the line at the supermarket who starts giving you a hard time because she saw you on TV. Anyway, so yeah, Chris Wallace is going over there. Like I said, when I'm 74, I hope it works out for me.
Just yes. Well, we can hope. Just to close out the Wallace part. So he goes to CNN Plus. So everyone's doing this Plus, even if they have a real transmission over cable networks and over other over-the-top properties. But Fox has Fox Nation now. It's interesting. So the bedrock of Fox Nation is actually Tucker Carlson. CNN Plus, is that just to bring Wallace over without ostensibly having to push someone out of a time slot? But you think he might
I would think basically it's a real quick move. In other words, it's a quick switch for him. He can get his show up again. I don't think he's going to be taking a nightly show. I would be surprised. He's going to be doing big interviews, probably something akin to what Christine Amanpour does. In other words, she used to have her interview show. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him as part of 60 Minutes. I wouldn't be surprised in a lot of things. I think he's going to be freelance. I do understand it's non-exclusive, so he can move around and do a few things. Mm-hmm. But look, the internet is actually, in fairness to CNN, is where they're strong. They have a lot of news stories, and I think when you see a guy like Wallace there, I think we're going to see them move away from this constant focus on the Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon stories. If I was Don Lemon, I'd be worried.
Yeah, Don Lemon, because he's terrible. Unless he's drunk on New Year's Eve, he's okay then. All right, staying with the media, but slightly different story. But another liberal media collapse before our very eyes. So BuzzFeed had an IPO, not a straight up IPO, through a SPAC, special purpose acquisition company. I'm very skeptical of these. In one way, I admire that capitalism has found a way around onerous regulations, but the usual IPO process is fairly rigid. In the old days, you used to need to have this thing called a profit to go public. Those days are long gone. But but you can do a SPAC. You can make speculative forward-looking projections, even if they have no basis in reality, and you can short-circuit a lot of the due diligence and requirements of an IPO. That's what BuzzFeed did. I think it only raised something like $16 million.
Yeah,
I mean,
was it that bad?
my golly, probably some people could put that on a credit card. They're losing money big time. They are now off more than 40% of the first week of trading. Just looking at my numbers here, they're down to $6. There was an apology on CNBC asking and saying, oh, well, if the price doubles, it's a pretty big if, then the valuation, not price times earning, which is impossible to calculate since they're losing money, it's price to sales. Well, then it would be a reasonable, respectable level that would imply that all these other digital-only properties are actually worth something. It was a true fairy tale. What else do we have? For the 9 months ended September 30th, losses of $58 million on revenue of $336 million. And if you back up to their operating loss, if you back out interest and depreciation and taxes, you get $43 million of loss. It's a respectable amount of revenue, $336 million, but they're losing money and the stock is down. So with the stock at half or a little bit more of where it debuted just a week ago, do you think it's a buy, Mark?
No. I think the problem with them is that I don't know what they are. And this guy who, set them up, the Peretti, who basically was one of the he calls himself one of the founders of Huffington Post, which I guess, they end up buying it or whatever he is. I've listened to the guy a couple of times. I don't think he understands media. I think he understands ideology. He wants to be a player. He wants to be the guy that walks into the swanky bar and, the Upper West Side and everybody goes, oh, wow, he knows what Barack Obama. I've never considered him a serious person. Look, a lot of times people get very, very lucky in things. And he did. And he's good. I'm sure he's a very good technology guy. He's a lot richer than I am. I know he's a good investor from what people have said about him. In other words, he's got a good investment team. He picks NVIDIA. He picks the winners. You know what I'm saying? He's good. But when it comes to media, I think he's interested in dictating more than anything else. Now, I'm saying that because here's my major issue with the guy. They have been asked by their union to establish a $50,000 per content employee floor in New York. In other words, at least pay people $50,000. Now, I don't believe in that. But I'm a conservative. I'm not a big union guy. So it's consistent for me to say no.
Right.
But they all believe in that union stuff. They all believe in all these things. And they're still saying no. Do you know what it means to say you're not going to pay somebody $50,000 a year to live in New York City? It means basically, hey, let's go hire a bunch of kids who went to some overpriced liberal arts schools, have worthless journalism degrees, and we'll get their parents to subsidize their lifestyle. That's not a business plan. Okay? Now, I just don't see them at this point in time attracting the talent or having the shows. And when you see the articles, to do the things that would move them forward. I think there is a growing sense among news readers. I think we're seeing it with Substack. I think Barry Weiss, Joe Rogan, hopefully us, other people, where they want to see content that actually has one thing going on: accuracy, okay, and actually some knowledge.
All right.
When you read some of these BuzzFeed pieces, you can just tell that somebody picked it up, ran it off, ran with it, pushed the button, and moved forward. They're trying to get clickbait. They're trying to do things. I don't think the future for news and shows is really going to be an advertising-based model. I think it's going to be people paying $3 a month, $5 a month for different avenues of content, and they're just going to go to it. If you put out $25 a month. I told somebody this the other day, and that middle class guy could do that. Say $300 a year for your subscriptions. Okay, you could get you could probably get the New York Times, but more importantly, you could probably get about 7 or 8 basically podcasts. Spotify, you'd cover 7 or 8 guys, people right there. But more importantly, you could just get a lot of different Substacks and things like that. You can get your information. And I think that's where we're going. I think people are going to be on these cell phones, and that's where they're going. So I see BuzzFeed, unless they can start churning out some quality content, I think they're in real trouble.
Yep, it seems I just can't. You never even see them cited. You see, of course, sort of unusual, not traditional news stories. Was it Teen People, Teen Vogue? I forget which. Actually, forced its way into some obnoxious political relevance. It just BuzzFeed seems like such a non-actor. That's why I was shocked by their level of revenue, but some of that may just be muscle memory. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, they own a variety of different operations. So, you know, you 331 million. I mean, you're basically talking 25 million. If they got 1,000 employees, you know, at 25 million, that's you get 1,000 employees. That's basically payroll for, you know, that's most of that's payroll.
Well,
and also, let's face, they have to hire engineers. They have to hire technical people. Those guys don't care where they work. You still got to pay those guys 150, 160 a year, you know.
Right. People who actually know how to do things. You know, just to close out on this one, I kind of wonder, how does J school? So yes, you're right. You have to pay these kids who are subsidized. They're subsidized in their education, and basically mom and dad are sliding them a few grand so they can live in New York or wherever in Austin and have these jobs. And they have these worthless degrees. Journalism school. It's like you sort of teach people 5 things: who, what, where, when, why, maybe how. And beyond that, it's just, you know, the ability to ask questions of people and write it up. I have no idea why that takes 4 years and $250,000.
I'm a tabloid guy, by and large. I tell people that up front. I come from a place where basically we have people who are Form 5 and Form 7 graduates who are right for us. We do have a couple of people who went to Oxford. We have our political people at Apple. We did have these people at Apple Daily. We do have educated people. There's no doubt about it. But quite frankly, in Hong Kong, no one's going to send their kid to school 4 years unless they're rich and run around this. Most of our guys are working class. And I think it is one of the things that would bore people. But we have seen a change in journalism, you know, all the way up through the 80s and things like that. It was guys from state colleges, universities, maybe they went to St. John's or something like that. Mm-hmm. Now we've got everybody coming out of, you know, Harvard and every place else, and they decide they want to be, you know, the next great journalist. And it's the reason why they're a pain in the ass to manage, because you tell them to go down and cover a crime story and they're not interested. When I was very disappointed in Fox and NBC for not being on the ground there with more people. I mean, there's some incredible human stories going on right now in Kentucky and other places, and that's the news that people want. Crime stories are incredibly good stories, and it's not just because they're good; it's because it's real drama. I don't understand why would you want to write about climate change all day long unless you just want to hang out with, you know, people that you think are cool. Yeah. You know, I mean, a good murder.
John Kerry.
Yeah, a good murder. Are you kidding? I mean, how much more interesting is a multiple murder? That would be fantastic.
Well, I mean, just look at the expression.
Not that I'm pushing for multiple murders. I'm not pushing for multiple murders.
But it wouldn't kill ratings if it happened. Okay, we'll leave that there. Inflation is at the official inflation, which may actually be lower than actual inflation. It's the highest level it's been since 1982. 1982 was when Jimmy Carter 1970s level inflation was being arrested. Ronald Reagan got elected, took office early 1981. He and Paul Volcker, who was the Fed chair at the time, decided they're going to do 2 things. They're going to arrest inflation by cranking up interest rates, having a very tight monetary policy, but to offset that with the supply side stimulus in the form of tax cuts. So you had an enormously bad recession early in Reagan's presidency, but the supply side cuts meant that by 1983, the economy was growing again, and he would go and be reelected the next year with a 49-state sweep, which is a contradiction in terms, but hey, it was a big deal. No one is arresting any inflation right now. In fact, we don't have the toughness for it. We just don't have the toughness for it. I would even argue that back then, I remember reading a guy saying that the unions were actually for a tough policy. A guy told me you could get union economists on there because, look, the fact of the matter is everybody thinks we have people participating in the discussion about our economy now who don't belong to be participating. People go, you know, the teachers union. Well, you know, we're teachers and we educate and we know this. You don't know anything. There's an ATM in the corner. It comes out of business
It pays your salaries. It comes out of people's property taxes, and it pays your salaries. And these people are clueless. All they want is everything to happen. You know, let me tell you how bad inflation is. I was just in Canada, and I was at our hotel. I was at the hotels that I oversee, and I've been going there for 20 years. It's actually pretty funny. One time, I mean, people go, "How long have you been here?" And I go, 21 years. I've been coming to those hotels, and I know. I've been to retirement parties. I know so many people. Okay. But let me explain to you one. I'm sorry, I keep saying that. Everybody I'm talking to is telling me how expensive things are. Everybody I'm talking to is telling me how milk costs more, how this costs more, how that costs more. People are hurting. Okay. And it looks like the reaction that we're going to have from central bankers and from this administration, I'm not sure if it'll keep going. The reaction we're going to have is just to print more money. Hence, across the board, and in part because of a labor shortage, hotels and other things in the Niagara area, the minimum is going to be 7% raise for most people across the Niagara region. 7%. And you know what? Guess what inflation's running at? 8.25%.
They're losing ground.
They're losing ground. But also the fact of the matter is they're not getting ahead. People aren't getting ahead. Before they were getting ahead, they felt like they were moving up. And that's a huge problem. And I'm telling you, people wonder why Hispanics are flipping for Republicans, because they're not stupid, and they don't have a trust fund, and they don't have their parents paying for everything. You know, they're not looking for a job at Buzzfeed with their parents subsidizing 20 grand a year so they can go out to their favorite latte bar. The fact of the matter is people are hurting. And I really get offended because I have, in the 3 businesses I oversee, 1 business is white collar, the rest businesses are blue collar. I've got a private operation that I oversee, mostly Hispanic guys, you know what I'm saying? These guys, and you get this arrogance. Oh, you know, maybe don't eat this, maybe don't eat that. It's all somebody who's not going to have to sacrifice. We cannot reign over top of people, okay? We cannot look down at people and say, well, maybe you have to sacrifice, but we won't. Gas, I took an F-150 up to Canada, okay, drove it up there because I had some stuff to do. To fill it up was $105.
Wow.
Okay, I took that same thing 2 years ago. I actually went on my Amex and checked, $76. Think about people who are trying to get around. Look at all the things that happen. Oh, you can work an extra 4 hours, but you know, it's not happening for people. It's not good. And then you get these people saying, oh, well, the meat factories are making so much more money. Oh, yeah, congratulations. They're making more money because there's more demand for their product than they have product. So you raise your price. You know, you have a marginal increase on the product that you're selling. But I'm telling you, Christian, it is a huge, huge issue. And it is something I cannot even fathom how people just blow this off. And, you know, in China, it's really funny. In China, we just had the former finance minister, I guess he's looking to go to jail, say we need some honest discussions about statistics. All I thought to myself is, I'd like to have some honest discussions about financial statistics in the U.S.
Yes.
Everything is spin. Everything is, and it gets back to our media, where basically all the media elites, they all want to go to the convention center. They all want to go to the Kennedy Center together. They all want to hang out together. And you know what? They're all making $400,000. They don't give a damn that a gallon of milk costs a little bit more. They don't have any thought process about, you know, because they're on Amazon all the time. You know what I'm saying? They don't care. Everything, they're not even looking at prices. And there are people out there who are looking at it, and it's hurting the American people.
Yeah, it's out of control. It's in the places that people, it really does matter, does impact normal people. You know, I always love the debate. They say, well, you know, overall inflation is at 7%, but core prices only went up 4 or 5%. And that's so we're going to exclude volatile categories like energy and food. It's like, what do you think the average person consumes in a given week? Are they out buying gas turbines or 100,000 pounds of rebar? No, they're buying food and gas.
When you make up statistics like that and you're in the office, I mean, don't you like need to take a shower afterwards because you feel so slimy? You know, that's like the one thing is that always drives me crazy about CPI, and Republicans are guilty of it. Nobody ever includes rent. Rent is
Yeah.
going through the roof. It's going, everybody is there. As a property owner, you know, I take somebody up 5%. It's because I don't want to really have the person out. You know what I'm saying? But 5%, that's a lot of money for somebody when I'm charging them $2,000 a month. I just raised them basically, you know, another $100, another 12 or $1,300 a year. They got to come up with that out of their pocket. Are they getting that? Are they getting that kind of money back in a raise? I'm not so sure.
Right. And it just reinforces, especially in housing, that there is an asset bubble and it's being driven by monetary policy.
Yes.
Excuse me. If you create all these dollars and they're chasing a finite amount of goods, the price is going to go up. It just is. And you could say that, well, there's a scarcity, and maybe there is in some markets, certainly hot places that people want to move to. But you know, the fact that rents are going up even in New York City, which is not back online, and which, you know, great hopes for the new mayor taking office in the new year. But, you know, crime out of control, offices closed, places just kind of pretty down in the heel. And it's interesting, you're right. You know, Republicans have not figured out how to capitalize this, how to explain it in easy terms that people can understand. People are drawing their own conclusion. They're not, it's amazing. If you look at the generic poll, are you going to vote Democrat or Republican in the congressional elections? Republicans are up. There's even a new freak poll. There were two polls about 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, having Republicans up more than 10% in this poll. And incidentally, when this poll is tied, Republicans usually kill it in the House. They usually pick up 20, 30, 40 seats. But even I can't remember if it was Politico's, I just remembered it was a left-leaning outlet, came out recently and had Republicans up by 10 points. And that's not because they're doing anything particularly smart. It's because average people without watching MSNBC or other networks can go and see what's happening, you know, in their bank account every month.
I agree.
All right. Well, two other things on that. One is, do you think Amazon is driving some of the wage inflation here? I mean, they are sort of
of course,
de facto, yeah.
Because we're one of our businesses is we're the largest business in the community where we're at, and all the small guys complain. Oh, you know, you guys just took your people up to $17 an hour. You know, literally within. You know, or you just took your Canadian, by the way. So maybe so. So the thing is, but I mean, you took your people up to this wage and that wage, and then the small guys have to follow. Look, there are too many jobs chasing not enough people. But what kind of cracks me up on this is I thought Amazon were the bad guys that didn't do anything, and then the Wall Street Journal has a big story today about how Amazon's wrecking anything. They're making small business people pay more. Just a quick story. The reason why I'm so interested in this is years and years and years ago, I had a relative and we had a factory that moved into down in Southwest Virginia. And it wasn't a furniture factory. It was some other type of modern. It was working with the railed cars and something like that. And the guy came out with basically, because it had a union tie up north, and to move the jobs down, the guy came out with wages that were like $14 an hour. So that'd be like $28 an hour today. And I just remember this one man who was at the store when we used to go for complaining about how it was driving up all his wages and this and that, and how it was driving everything through the roof. And as we were walking out, my uncle said to me, yeah, he said, he's kind of upset. And I go, why is he upset? He said, well, he basically uses prison labor for some of his road work. And it's tied to some type of index that he has to pay these guys. So he's worried that they're going to ask that the warden's going to tell him to pay the guys more money. That's my mentality here. That's the mentality I'm looking at. In other words, I know it's not a direct correlation, but that's the way some employers are. I have no sympathy. If Amazon wants to pay somebody $25 an hour and the other guy can't do it, then God bless Amazon. It's like, it's not, they go, well, Amazon has all these. Yeah, they have more efficiencies in their business. If I were you, get out there and find some more efficiencies.
Right.
You know, but I mean, I'm not gonna give. They're the evil corporation one day that they're not because they're union. And now we know why they're not getting unions, because basically you go to these small areas in Alabama and places like that. Look at that tragedy that just happened in Illinois. That Amazon warehouse was hit. Amazon had executives on the ground in 24 hours. They had jets flying in, guys walking around. I was reading somewhere that basically the Amazon guys are walking in like with Jeff Bezos and some of his personal security guys armed, because they're carrying so much cash just to make sure their people get what they need. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so my point is like, these are not the complaints about them. I just can't, that's the whole thing. It's ideological people sitting around going like, oh, well, they're bad, so let's find another way to attack them. I mean, I just don't understand the mentality. It's like nobody ever had a summer job who's a journalist anymore, other than working at their mother's favorite NGO. They just drive me crazy.
That's right. Now you have me thinking about your guy who was using prison labor. I hope it was like Cool Hand Luke, which is
Southwest Virginia. So I think Cool Hand Luke would have probably been like a step up.
That's right. Final facet on inflation is crypto. Crypto, took a dive with Bitcoin below 50, but it's now back up above. It isn't where it was. I've been extremely skeptical of crypto all along, just because I think that if it ever comes to challenge real currencies, then you'll see Western countries do what China did, which is just to outlaw them. I mean, Federal Reserve, if you ever really challenged the dollar as a reserve currency, I mean, that would, for better or worse, pretty much for worse. If we suddenly lost the ability just to buy up debt that Congress racks up by printing dollars, that would be a huge, huge change in lifestyle for America. It might be something that would be good in the long term, be a shock in the short term. People are using this somewhat instead of gold, at least temporarily. Gold isn't really down much, but it's not up as much as you think for an inflationary environment. What do you think? I mean, I think I'm still a skeptic. I'm questioning myself a little bit just because it has had staying power, all of these crypto. But what do you think of that versus gold as a hedge?
Well, first of all, I am a physical gold believer in physical gold. If I have to give people advice, you can't all have it. I had a friend, and his whole belief was, he said, look, if you're making more than $250,000 a year, he said, I know you may have a lot of pressures on you. He said, you should always have $50,000 in cash. He said, or $50,000 in just liquid gold or something. It's not liquid, but I mean gold bars. You got to have that there, and that's your protection when everything goes bad, if you lose your job. Because when things go bad, it all happens at once. So gold is the one thing that probably would sustain you. I'm not a crypto person because I believe everything you just said. I think the moment that crypto really starts threatening, I think crypto is the one thing politically that is so vulnerable because so many people don't like it. So few people play with it. And, it'd be like Peter Thiel complaining somebody took money from him. That's how popular crypto players are. In other words, they have no friends in the financial press. They have no friends anyplace else. It's an easy political move. And we saw with China, there was a little bit of backlash. Of course, the Chinese move offshore to play it. But to me, it's a casino, and I don't like it. And the other thing, too, is that, I think the thing is like, what do we invest for? Do we invest to make money, or do we invest for security? Most of us make money on our jobs. We make money so we're trying to build something up as quickly as possible. Why stay up at night, walk out in the morning and meet Maria Bartiromo, or the CNBC has on there, crypto's down 23%. And then you're,
right. Well, and that's the key, because you don't want, with a currency, it's nice if you own something and it appreciates, but that's not what you want in a currency. You want the perfect currency would hold its value perfectly. A perfect currency, one unit would buy me a cheeseburger today, and that same one unit would buy me a cheeseburger 10 years from now. And there doesn't seem to be much out there like that.
No, I mean, but the whole thing is like I'm saying, if you're an investor, if you're also living your life, put some cash in the bank. If you want to put it under the mattress, that's fine too. Just make sure you have a gun at home. But I mean, the thing is that, but the thing is like, if you're going to have gold, have physical gold. I'm not a gold bug. I don't think people should have it. But look, if your argument is, I want to have crypto in case this and that, then that's fine. If your argument is, I'm going to have crypto because I'm going to make a lot of money off of it, Well, basically, if you bought it a year ago and you timed it perfectly when it was at 35, you're a genius. But that's what my 22-year-old nephew thinks. You know what I'm saying? And so we just sit back and let him lose money, and and then he'll learn, or he won't have any money left. But
Right.
the thing is that my point to people is, I think if you're going to buy gold, buy physical gold, put it in the safety deposit box. I think that's the thing that you're looking for. And I think, and then if you're going to have cash, put cash in the bank. Nothing wrong with holding on to cash. And like the US dollar is going to continue to be, quite a good shot. I mean, one of the things, for example, right now is like, I get paid in Taiwan. I mean, in Taiwan, because I spend my time in Taiwan, I get paid in Taiwanese dollars. The Taiwan dollar is at 26.7 or 27 or something like that. We used to be at 30. So it's a 10, it's more than a 10% switch. I'm changing all the time now to US dollars because it's a great one. And, you can lose that. So I live a life like that. Hong Kong, the only thing it's still got going for it's got a peg to the US dollar. Yeah. And the moment that goes away, that's it. Look, I just believe that, people have to understand who they are. We are not all Warren Buffett. We are not all Peter Thiel. We are not these people. When they're playing crypto or they're playing these games, this is just a game to them. You know what I'm saying? It's a very smart bunch of very smart people in the room that are much smarter than I am, and they're probably much smarter than most investors. So my advice to people always is get yourself some gold, get yourself some cash. And you know what? If something happens, you're good for a year.
Right. Right.
Paying the mortgage, paying the mortgage, working for Amazon while you're looking for a job, because Amazon pays right. Pretty good.
Yeah, we could drive for Uber. Okay, to close out the episode, I love this story. Peloton. I shorted Peloton previously, closed out the position.
You've done very well on Peloton.
I know. It's
so I think you wrote this episode. I think you wrote this episode.
Yeah. So here's the latest development. So it's down. Its 52-week high was 171. It's now about 38. That's a 52-week low. And Deutsche Bank initiated coverage with a buy just a week ago, even though it's continued to fall. Oopsie. And they also, so they keep missing, and they also just had a public relations disaster. They knew, I don't know if they tried to get the product placement or if they knew it was happening. They just didn't know what it would be specifically. There's a Sex and the City movie that I guess is just out or coming out. I can guarantee you I will not be seeing it. Mr. Big dies after a Peloton workout.
I know.
So, not good PR for the company as it turns out.
You said it exactly about Peloton, and I think people can see from my multiple chins on television. My whole thing really is that it's not a software company. It's a cool bike that basically people were bored. They had to have something to do. It was just like putting in new windows. Anderson Windows, by the way, did huge business during the COVID crisis because people sat around and goes, "Oh, I'd like to get some new windows. I feel a draft or whatever." And Peloton's just a COVID buy. I think it's probably a pretty decent product if you're looking for an exercise bike. Why not? But that's all it is an exercise bike. It is not the be all end all of the world. I hope the executives sold their shares at a very high level. And my belief is probably we will see Peloton 3 years from now in Nordstrom's, in the Nordstrom Sports section, which we know is horrible, or at Dick's or something like that. And it'll just be like every other bike. And it'll probably be owned by someone like Johnson from Taiwan or some Chinese company or something like that. I think the product's fine, but the idea that it's worth a lot or it's something special is ridiculous. And the interesting thing was, it's amazing. I mean, you see how many people have come up against it right away. But I love the idea that Mr. Big, Chris North, when you sent that to me, I wasn't aware of it. So I looked it up real quick. I'm going like, can you imagine? I mean, and what are we ever going to find out if there was a guy at Peloton who got it in there for product placement? That'll be hilarious, because that guy will never work again. That'll be like the guy in the toy business who on Miss Kitty. You know what I'm saying? There's actually a guy who did it. Fortunately, he found a lot of other stuff, but I met him. And he said, to this day, that's what he's known as, even though he had all his other successes. But hey, look, it's is it a short still? You're better at that stuff than I am. You know what I'm saying? But
I closed my position. So I would say, Yeah, be careful at this point.
It's low enough now where, quite frankly, we may see some acquisition activity as I looked into it. You know what I'm saying? But it's going to be it's going to go lower. I mean, it's going to go lower. I think. I don't believe. I don't believe in all these. It's a bike. You ride it. That's what you do.
It competes with a $15 jump rope. Granted, okay, so it has the screen, it's interactive, and blah blah blah, and it's got the music. It's a little different, but not that different.
Yeah, and for what it is, basically, I mean, like a guy said, I didn't realize how expensive they were with this programming thing. You can get like a full gym membership, which I wouldn't use either. But you know what I'm saying? At least I'd feel better about having the gym membership. I could go have a cup of coffee in there and maybe feel. But it is amazing.
It is. Go to the gym. They should really serve booze there. I'd like to have a nice glass of wine while I look at fit people.
The problem is I'm the old guy at the gym now. I used to be the guy who was like, talking. The comment I get now sometimes, like, you look like my father, and I'm going like, great, which is fine. Actually, it saves me so much trouble. I don't have anything. But anyway, oh, by the way, look, I want to give you credit for the Peloton thing, because I think it was an incredibly good call, and it goes to what you invest in, what you know. And you were driving along, you saw all these things sitting on this bike, and you said the Pelotons will be the next thing in the street a year from now, and
collecting
so
dust in garages.
It's always going to happen. It's so hard for people to keep doing these things. It's like in the Tony Soprano show. I remember he used to get on the bike and used to ride on the bike, and I'm going like, if I had that, my wife would not let that bike sit in our bedroom. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, come on, it's ugly, and it's sitting there. So then you put it in the basement. Then he moved to the basement. Then it's all over. He just stopped going. That was a subplot of The Sopranos. I watched that show a lot.
It's a good one. It was good. All right, that's all the time we have for this episode. If you like what you see, please subscribe to us on YouTube if you're watching us there, or follow us on your podcast catalog. Leave a comment if you're on Apple. Thanks so much, and we'll be back again soon.